Welcome everyone to the Catskill Regional Teacher Center Legislative Forum. We encourage you to use the chat to share your thoughts and questions to our invited guests. Please note that only the invited speakers will be able to see and respond to your questions or comments. We ask you to please be respectful to our guests and remember that they are here because they care. They are our allies in education. For more than 18 years, we have provided a means for teachers to interact with the elected officials in education. This forum was designed for teachers to participate in the governmental process, become familiarized with New York's political structure related to education, and highlight some partnerships demonstrating how teacher centers are able to work with community partners in unique ways to support our teachers and students. For those who have never participated in these events, despite careful planning, it is common that last-minute changes have to be made. That is the case tonight. Our elected officials often have last-minute changes in their plans, so such is the case here tonight. So we're going to pause from our set agenda and to allow Assemblymember Tague to introduce himself and address the audience to share with us what he is doing to support teachers in the classroom and or how he can support the work of teacher centers. And Assemblyman Tague, I'm going to turn it over to you. I would appreciate if you could keep your comments for 6 minutes. And hopefully I have you unmuted. I don't see him. Is he here yet? Oh, Chris Tague. Oh, sorry about that. I'm having trouble finding you to allow you to be a co-host. There you go. You should be able to talk now.
Okay, well, hello, everybody. I'm glad to see everybody here today. And I'm so happy that I get to speak before Senator Hinchey. She usually speaks before me. And there's usually not much for me to say after she's done. So I'm glad I had another event. First of all, I want to thank you folks for allowing me to go first. I have an event in Albany that I have to be at. So I truly appreciate it. As many of you know, I am actually a former BOCES student, and until Assemblyman Simpson was elected in the last election, I believe I was the only BOCES student to be elected to the New York State Legislature. So I'm kind of proud of that and appreciate all that you folks do. You know, I think the question is what can we do as legislators to help you do your jobs? I mean, we have been under unprecedented times during this COVID. And when the COVID crisis first started, I have 33 school districts in my assembly district. And actually under the new redistricting, it's going to increase to even more. I started a quarterly, well, I say quarterly, it turned into a weekly call at the very beginning of COVID, and then it stretched on. We moved it to every 2 weeks and then monthly as the numbers started to go down. But I think it was very tough communication-wise because we were getting information from the governor's office, from the health department, and then we were hearing from the schools, from the teachers and administration, that things were different there. So I think communication is important. And, you know, these events that you folks have are very, very helpful because we get to hear directly from you. We actually, a group of us in Shenango, Otsego, Schoharie, and Delaware County, what we've been meeting with a school group there 2-3 times a year now. We just had a meeting with them. I think I lose track of time sometimes. Senator Oberacker, you might have to refresh my memory, but I think it was about 3 weeks ago. We met with those folks. And I find it very helpful, especially going into the budget process, to be able to talk to the people with their feet on the ground. You have 150 of us in the Assembly and 63 in the Senate, and we don't always know every single thing that's going on in every school or what you folks have to deal with. It's very important to be able to communicate with you. So, not even through the budget process, of course, that is important, but it's also important legislatively to make sure that we're bringing bills to the floor that are going to benefit you and the kids. So I guess that would be the most important thing, is continue on with the communication that we started during the COVID. Let's not lose it, and let's continue as we move forward after COVID's gone, which I hope is very, very soon.
Thank you so much. Very appreciated those comments. So here's what to expect for today. First, we would like to recognize our local education leaders who RSVP'd that they would be here today. Then I will welcome our special guests. Then our board president will briefly introduce Chancellor Young. Chancellor Young will be asked to speak for about 10 minutes on a question that Sarah will ask him. After the Chancellor speaks, Maria Montoya will provide an example of our partnership with SUNY Oneonta. She will, after her brief presentation, I will ask a follow-up question to our invited guest related to the presentation. After the responses, we will hear from John Campbell of the Franklin Railroad and Community Museum. When he is finished, our invited guest will again have 3 minutes to respond to a question that I will pose. Lastly, we will ask our guest to ask a question of the educators in the audience. We will encourage you to send your responses to us here at the Catskill Regional Teacher Center. We will make sure that the responses are sent on to our guests. We recognize that many teachers joined to share with our guests their experiences and concerns. You are encouraged to respectfully do so by chatting individually with our individual guests. Those guests may or may not be able to reply. We will compile the chat discussion to share with our guests after the forum. So joining us today, we have from DCMO BOCES, Superintendent Perry Dewey, ONC BOCES Superintendent Catherine Huber, SUNY Oneonta President Alberto Carday, NYSET PAC Coordinator District Number 51 Joseph Morardi, Catskill Regional Teacher Center Policy Board President Sarah Ingalls, Acton Teachers Association President Trevor Beams, Edmondson Superintendent Gary Furman, Skenevis Superintendent Teresa Carling, Lawrence Association President Beverly Murch, Norwich Teacher Association President Eric Cunningham, CDO STEM and Career Opportunities and Rural Education Director Liz Rickard, Cherry Valley Springfield Central Teachers Association President Tracy Waterman. We are honored to have with us for the first time Chancellor Young of the New York State Board of Regents. We are grateful for the return of our wonderful Regent Susan Mittler of the 6th Judicial District. We are also honored to have with us from Senate District Number 51, Peter Oberacker, Senate District 53, Rachel May, Senate District 46, Michelle Hinchey, Senate District 52, Fred Akshar, Assembly District 122, Joe Angelino, Assembly District 101, Brian Miller, Assembly District 102, Chris Tague, and Assembly District 121, representing John Salka, Isaac Smith. Thank you, everyone, for joining us here today. At this time, I would like to ask the Catskill Regional Teacher Center Policy Board President, Sarah Ingalls, to introduce our guest of honor, Chancellor Young, and ask our first question of the night.
afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming. Lester W. Young, Jr. has made creating opportunities where every student can be successful the guiding principle of his more than 50 years of public service. He began his career with the New York City Department of Education, holding positions as teacher, guidance counselor, supervisor of special education, and principal. During his tenure as principal, PS 183 Brooklyn, Ocean Hill, Brownsville, he was recognized as a School of Excellence by the United States Department of Education and the New York State Education Department in 1987. In March 2008, Lester W. Young, Jr. was appointed by the New York State Legislature as Regent at Large, the University of the State of New York, and in April 2020 was appointed by the New York State Legislature to a fourth term as Regent at Large. At the January 2021 Board of Regents meeting, Dr. Young was unanimously elected by his peers to be Chancellor effective January 12, 2021. Chancellor. In an article by Edweek, American public schools lost 1.3 million students in the 2021 school year. Many parents are choosing to homeschool and seek private or charter school alternatives. Many teachers are leaving due to the lack of substitutes, unforgiving mandates, hybrid learning, and more. What are you doing to encourage teachers to stay in the field, especially in a rural, comparatively poorly paid region? We respectfully request that you keep your comments to 10 minutes. Thank
you. Good afternoon, and thank you. Can you hear me? We
can hear you.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, but thank you for that generous introduction. It is a pleasure for me to be with all of you this afternoon. I'm also joined, mentioned by my colleague on the board, representing the 6th Judicial District Regent, Susan Mittler. I think that I would be remiss if I didn't begin with a real recognition, not only for the elected leaders who are here joining us today, who support education, but also for a recognition of all of the educators who are participating this afternoon. On every chance that I have, I want to recognize the hard work and devotion and commitment that educators, particularly public school educators, have made over the last 2.5 years. I would say that nothing in our formal training could have fully prepared us for what we have faced addressing the COVID crisis. And I think the reaction of educators across New York State is actually more than commendable. You've gone above and beyond. You know, it wasn't just about how do we provide academic support during the crisis. We know that many of you actually rolled up your sleeves and provided all sorts of services in addition to providing technology devices, making home visits, ensuring that youngsters had appropriate meals, went well beyond the duties of teachers and school and district leaders. And so on behalf of my colleagues on the Board of Regents, I just want you to know how much we appreciate the work that you do each and every day. The other point that I would make, when you ask the question, and by the way, this is actually a question that we could probably spend a lot of time addressing. The critical issue for me is that everything has a context. And so in answering the question, we need to understand the context. The decline in enrollment across the nation, the fact that parents are choosing to homeschool and some are seeking other other choices in terms of schooling alternatives for their children. You know, this didn't just happen. This was really the result of a crisis in American education, and that was really part of the health crisis. And so we know that the impact of COVID will be felt in families and communities and in schools for years to come. And in fact, what I've said continually is that we're in kind of what I would describe as a moral moment. You know, what we do now will impact generations to come. And so in terms of thinking about, well, what are the solutions? We have to understand what the context is. People are not just leaving teaching for no reason. There are reasons why people are leaving, and there are reasons why parents are making other choices. And I think that, in fact, I don't think, I know I've had, you know, when I served as a superintendent in Brooklyn, New York, we had several teacher centers. And I applaud the Teacher Center for bringing us together today to discuss this very important topic. And so what are some of the things that I think we ought to be doing? Number one, I think it's critically important that all leaders and policymakers make a public recommitment to public education. See, I think over the last several years, unfortunately, we've taken some things for granted. And so I think we have to understand that as our schools go, our communities go, our state goes, our nation goes. And so we have to do more than just give lip service to the ideals of quality education. We have to ensure that all young people have access to what they need so that they can go as far as their hopes, dreams, and hard work will take them. That's number one, a commitment, a recommitment to public school and schooling. The next thing that we must do is ensure that we make the kinds of investments in all neighborhood schools to ensure that each of them are the kind of school that we want our own children to attend. You know, because of the nature of public education over the last several years, we've gotten away from, in many places, the idea that youngsters should be able to go to their neighborhood school, right? You know, this idea of schooling shouldn't be so complicated that we're trying to pick and choose which special school do we want to send our child to. You know, parents ought to be able, you know, the vision of the democracy, the vision of public education was really around how do we support the neighborhood school? How do we ensure that that school is providing the kind of quality education that we want for our children? The third component that I think is important that we've stressed during my tenure as Chancellor on the Board of Regents is this trying to get away from this idea that there's a one size fits all. Those of you in education know over the last 30 years, and with the advent of high stakes testing, we've gotten into regulation, requirement. Everyone has to do it the same way. And it leaves out this whole notion of context. And I sincerely believe that, quite frankly, New York has some of the best educational institutions on the planet. Unfortunately, they aren't available to everyone. And so what that suggests to me is that there is a local context. And part of our role as regents is to develop policies that allow school districts and communities to identify the needs of their community and solutions. Our role is to support those solutions so that the schools can, in effect, live up to the expectations of those communities. And that's part of how we see our role as regents. The other point that I would make is that Commissioner Rosa and I have said that we have two major priorities. The first priority is to ensure that our system is more equitable. And I'll explain what that means in a minute. The second priority is to ensure that our agency gets out of the business of only dealing with compliance and monitoring, but that we become more service oriented. And that means that we have to rely on what was said by the first speaker, this notion of communication. See, I actually believe, it's no secret, I've been an educator a lot longer than I've been a policymaker, but I believe that the best policies, the best solutions are the ones that are built from the ground up. I do not believe that individuals who are far removed from a situation have the wherewithal and understanding the unique contextual situations that districts and schools are facing. See, we understand that among the over 700 school districts in New York State, there are huge differences. And those differences form a basis for how education is offered. There are some districts in urban communities that, you have schools that are literally in walking distance from each other. And then you have other districts, like I understand some districts that are participating today that are actually in rural communities. And the whole organizational structure of schooling and teaching is very different. And so it is incumbent upon us as policymakers to make sure that our policies are shaped, taking into consideration how those policies will impact the various constituents throughout New York State. So I'm going to get back to what I said earlier. We can't have the one size fits all. The other is, and I know this has been a topic of a lot of conversation, and that's this whole issue of equity. And so here's simply what we need. When we talk about equity from a policy perspective, it is very simply this: how do we ensure that we are providing all students in New York State with the resources that they need so that they will be able to develop the knowledge, skills, and dispositions so that they will go as far as every parent and they want themselves to go. That it is that simple. How do we provide the supports to schools, to classrooms, to teachers, so that they can provide the kind of education that they would want for their own child? It's that simple. This is not a conversation about we want to take from one group and give to another group. It is really about how do we give every youngster in New York State what they need. The other point that I would make, and I think it's critically important, particularly in this moment, those of us who've been in public education for a while, we recognize that with the impending budget, with the infusion of federal dollars, we now have more money coming into public education than we have during the whole 50 years I've been involved in public education. And so the old excuse that we didn't have enough money, we can't use now. And so the question we've got to ask ourselves is, now that we have this infusion of additional funds, is how do we use these funds effectively? And again, that means that we have to get away from the one size fits all. right? We have to have a mechanism for communicating with local districts and communities around the best use of these funds and how are we targeting them to ensure that we're helping all students. Now, I know I had a limited amount of time. Do I still have?
So I can give you like 4 more minutes. Okay,
thank you. So how do we use these funds? How do we use the funds effectively? And I think, again, the teacher centers from across the state is a perfect vehicle for helping us do that, right? The teacher centers are the perfect vehicle for bringing teachers together, for giving teachers voice about what do we do to support the classroom. And this is not just about lip service. We know all the research, everything research and experience tells us that the best investment that we can make in the schooling process is to invest in teachers and in classrooms. We know that's where everything begins and ends in our business. And so the question now becomes, instead of just more have-tos and more mandates, the question becomes, let's figure out how can we solve some of these problems and challenges that face us and do that in a way that incorporates the best thinking and the energy of the people who are closest to those problems and challenges. And those are the teachers, and I would dare say one of the most organized vehicles for making that happen across New York State are the teacher centers that are operating. So I'll stop there.
Thank you so much. Of course, I would not disagree. Thank you so much for those wonderful words. And talking about working from the bottom up, I would love to introduce our next person. At this time, I would like to introduce Dr. Montoya. And Dr. Montoya has been a wonderful supporter of the work that we are doing here at the Catskill Regional Teacher Center. And I'm going to turn things over to her to tell you about some of this work.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Can you hear me? I don't see myself, but I guess I'm with you. Yes, I am Professor Montoya, and I work at SUNY Oneonta. I have been a professor of languages, Spanish, at SUNY Oneonta for the last 21 years. And I had been involved in all kind of professional development. I'm a learner, and one of the best professional developments that I have engaged with lately has been working with the Teacher Center. We cooperate. The first time that I met Aaron was when we engaged with the letter writing project, which is a project that is led by Thor and in the education department. And his idea was to get us all together, college professors and K through 12 teachers, to share, to work with each other, to learn from each other. And I remember I joined them about in 2015, and I met so many teachers from the districts. I met them side by side, just sharing our lesson plans. And the writing center was key here in bringing teachers from the districts, networking. And I felt that this was really the time when I grew with my colleagues. In 2010, we tried to do something with the Oneonta district, and we did a conference on bilingual education. But I felt like that conference, it went well, but it was more the college bringing something to the districts. And I don't think that it's us bringing something or teaching something or providing professional development. I think it's everyone working with each other, because we have the same collective intention of addressing our students' needs, and we need to work together. Lately, for the past 5 years, the college has developed a program in bilingual education extender certification. And this year we got renewed. So we are going to start this grant again. It's a state grant. And this will benefit all the teachers that signed for this study. It's only 5 courses. So talking to Aaron and talking to the teacher center, we said, why don't we prepare something based on the program that we have here in bilingual education, and design a series of workshops where we chat with the teachers in K through 12, because they are the ones on the ground. We are not. The college professors, we're here, we understand, we know the theories, but we are not on a daily basis on the ground. We don't know exactly what the needs are, how the needs transform, and we don't know the details of the families and the needs to address language acquisition and accessing quality education. So we designed this kind of practice where we said, let's go and work together. And after the pandemic, it's very easy just to connect. And we had been doing the series of 5 talks. The 5 talks are aligned with the courses that are part of this bilingual education program that we have at SUNY Oneonta. And there's great conversations happening among us. I hope that we can continue sharing this, not just with series, but also at the Letters Talking Writing Project, where we'll get together and we pick a topic, and then science teachers teach us how they do science in the classroom. We talk about the challenges that we all have in the classroom and our kids. So I'm very glad for the Catskill Regional Teaching Center to exist. That's my best professional development and less expensive than traveling to another side of the world and doing a conference. So I really think that organization like the Writing Center needs to exist, and the teacher centers need to exist to network and cooperate. And I have learned the best from my colleagues, from teachers, for my students. So thank you, Aaron, for inviting me and sharing this collaboration that we're having. And hopefully we can continue with this model.
Thank you so much, Maria. Really enjoy doing the work that we're doing together. We're now going to hear from our guest. The question is on the screen, but I will also read it here momentarily. We will ask you to keep your comments to about 3 minutes. Oh, I gotta move the screen. All right. We have provided a 3-minute timer so you can judge approximately how much time you have left to speak. When you are finished speaking, kindly ask the next person on the list to unmute and speak for themselves. Here is the question that we will be asking, and we'll start with Chancellor Young. Many teacher centers work on the principles that teachers should want to, rather than be mandated to, engage in professional development. What can you do to help the use of an organic process to leverage the opportunities that we have with our colleges that will invigorate passion in teaching while creating engaging and fantastic professional development?
Well, I think one, we have to localize the centers of professional development. I think there's a strong body of research that informs us that the best professional development happens closer to where the work is actually occurring. And so there's a significant body of research. The other way to say it is that the way in which you change behavior is you work with the culture, right? It's not that you take people out of the culture and you expose them to a wonderful workshop. That might broaden their knowledge base, but that is not always designed to change behavior. And so I think, number one, we need to figure out strategies that allow us to localize professional development. The second thing that that does, it provides flexibility around the topics and focus of the professional development. See, because all too often, professional development that's done away from the work site is not addressing critical areas that need to be addressed at the work site. So it's important that the professional development emanate from the challenges and developmental needs that professionals have where they are. Now, I don't want to walk away from, there are a set of standard skills and competencies that all teachers need to have. We know that. We know that teachers need to know their pedagogy, they need to know their content, but they also need to know their students and how they learn. And so, yes, there are a set of standards for what we call good instruction, but in terms of the professional development, the ongoing development that a teacher engages in while they're working, that has to be focused at the local level. It can't, that is the only way. And by the way, I would say that that's not only true for school teachers, I think that's true for school leaders as well.
Thank you so much. Regent Mittler, would you like to speak?
Yes, I really would like to address, first I want to thank Chancellor Young for being so astute and understanding that you won't learn if you're directed to do that. You have to learn because you are inquisitive and you have a need. I really like to see professional development, content areas developed by requests of the teachers in the classroom. We have so many different levels of students with special needs, gifted, and just your everyday student who's facing all kinds of trauma, being home, getting to school, wearing a mask. This is a difficult time for everybody. So in fact, teachers also are facing these crises. I think to make it successful, the professional development has to address the needs that you have in the classroom. Our smaller districts, I'm the 6th judicial district and I cover many of your school areas. You have a very small number of professionals within a building. They often do not have grade level or subject level colleagues with which to meet. That's the beauty of a teacher center. You also have teachers who have families. And one of the issues is, if I go to professional development outside of my teaching day, what do I do with my family and my children so that they're not at the other end of this spectrum of feeling neglected or not having a parent or getting the direct attention? A lot of this can be done online. A lot of it can be done with things like Critical Friends Group, where you have a group and you literally are positive, critical friends that discuss, what is my problem in the room? What is it that I need to know? Can you help me plan for such diversity within the classroom when I have levels from non-readers or first grade readers all the way to kids in elementary school who are reading in the middle or high school level? So as an educator, I may fundamentally know how to teach you to read, but if I have 20 students in a classroom, how do I divide up the time? Where do I get my materials? And who's going to tell me I'm doing a good job? I think one of the problems we have in the rural districts is providing housing. I know the salaries are low or not as great as other areas, but these teachers and these support personnel can't find housing within their, it pays to move someplace else. We have to look at the benefits they have. We have to look at childcare, and we have to look at the diversity among and between the teachers so they feel safe in asking the question, what do I do with John? I've tried so many things. Where can I go to get the support to make it happen? Included in this professional development is some guidance on how to include the parents in the process. So you're not nagging and you're not being negative. You're helping support the parents who are sending the very best children they have to us and give them a feeling that they are part of the decision-making and giving their children what their children need. So it's a big project, and I'm so glad to still see some teacher centers. There are not many, and we need more. And I agree with Chancellor Young, they need to be local. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we'll now hear from Senator Oberacker.
Again, thank you, Aaron, and thank you, everybody, for allowing me an opportunity to address. You know, sitting on the Education Committee, one of the things that I would like to focus in on as far as the question goes, and it's one word, it's passion. And passion, you know, being in a business and being a business owner, I can see what passion does and what, you know, we do a lot of R&D work. So passion is it moves mountains. It really does. And I know factors that affect that in a negative sense, you know, so to speak. So the key to this is, you know, how do we create an environment that fosters up passion? And basically, the answer to me became very, very easy and very, very simple. I need to ask the teachers what that is. What would they do? What would they like to see? They know better than we do up in Albany. They know that, you know, what it would take to create that, you know, foster that environment for passion. So that's the key that I think kind of working forward, answering that question to reinvigorate it is to really focus in on the passion part of that. Now, representing rural districts in my 51st Senate district, we have issues of where can they be located to allow ease of getting there. We know today, you know, a snowstorm here, a storm coming through in the spring and washing things out, it can be challenging. So for us also, we have to be concerned about where we put these centers and these locations to make them easily accessible. You know, and the governor's budget this year includes about 14.26 million for teacher centers. I think it's a good start. I don't think it's enough. And I'll tell you, you know, again, as my businessman mind goes, I talk about my ROI, my return on investment. You know, also in the governor's budget is $41 million to fix the stairs up at the Capitol. I think it kind of speaks for itself. I would rather, for my ROI, my return on investment, I think we could take that money and actually use that again for helping these centers to get to get up and going and to help fund them, because let's be honest, that's a lot of where it starts as well. And I also would like to point out that for me as a legislator, having gone through my first budget last year, the one part of the budget that I voted for, that I saw the value, I saw my return on investment, was the education side of it. So I see I've got 10 seconds left. I want to thank everybody for the opportunity to ask or to answer the question. And I look forward to hearing from my far more eloquent and smarter legislators down the road. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We're now going to turn it over to Senator May's office. Unfortunately, Senator May has not been feeling well, so Brian Coffin is going to be filling in for her.
Oh, hi, Aaron. Zach Zila from Senator May's office here. I think Brian is with Senator Hinchey's office. So yeah, Senator May sends her apologies. I think
apologies.
No worries. I don't think it's the first time that's happened to me and Brian. Yeah, Senator May sends her apologies. I think she picked up a stomach bug in Albany, it seems like. So was looking forward to being here with you all tonight. And just thanks you all for your continued work, especially throughout the pandemic. We know how much of a stress that has been, and I can't speak for her too much, but I think, in recent years, well, first, what the previous three answers have all been are, all correct with local control, not mandating, being responsive to local needs. That for sure it starts with it. And then, us as legislative staff, legislators, making sure that you all have the resources you need, starting to fund foundation aid, making sure that this phase-in happens fully and completely, and then maybe look at updating the formula. There's been a lot of talks about that. The formula hasn't been updated in a while. And, now that we're actually funding it, maybe it can be something that we look at to really start to tweak with. But first things first, got to make sure that that phase in, is completed, and we look at resources for things like teacher centers as well. Like Senator Oberacker said, that's a great start, but got to make sure we get you all the funding we need, and then encourage a culture of passion, as Senator Oberacker said as well. We know a few years back, the changes we made with the APPR and the way that teachers are evaluated and moving a little bit away from standardized testing can help create that culture of passion and allowing teachers the tools that they need to teach successfully and not, teaching to the test. So I think that was a step a couple of years ago we made that was really great to help with that culture. And we really want to hear from you all what further steps we need to take. So again, really appreciate being here. And from a staff side, those are some things we think about here in our office. So
Thank you so much. And now we'll hear from Senator Hinchey's office. And I'd just like to really thank Senator Hinchey's office. She has been very wonderful about providing a specialist documentation for our national board certified teachers. We've had a couple coming from her region, and her office has been very generous in recognizing those board certified teachers. But we're going to turn it over to Brian Coffin from her office. Thank you, Brian.
I'm actually here.
Yes.
If you can see me. So hello, everyone. I can't see myself, but I don't need to see me as long as you all can see me. But so I'm here, Erin, and it's great to join you. Thank you for those great words. And it's great to join you all today. First and foremost, I'll take the last 3 seconds of May to add this part. It's great to be here, and thank you all so much for the work that all of you do. Most importantly, so just really thank you. I think a lot of what I would say and push for it has been said a bit. We know that you need more funding. That is critical. As I think Senator Oberacker said, we got a lot of great education funding in the budget last year. We'll be pushing for even more this year, but specifically for teacher centers, we know you need more funding. So we want to work with you on that. We want to be a partner to make sure that you have the resources that you need to be successful, and especially to help with just everything that you're working on. And I think helping teachers have professional development in areas that, again, as some people have said, but they're passionate about, and areas where they really want to dig in is going to be the best way forward. I think we can look at ag in the classroom. I have the privilege of chairing the agriculture committee, and the teacher of the year this year for the state was an agriculture teacher. That's amazing, right? And that's because that teacher is incredibly passionate and excited about the work that they're doing. So being able to provide those areas of development, those areas for questions and for learning more, really important. And then, of course, all of you know your classroom is the best too, right? And you know what's going to invigorate both you and your students. And so I think finding ways to bring in our teachers as peers, peer teaching through teacher centers, expanding that is a really great way to encourage the solution, right? And expanding our solution areas. And so a lot of the areas that I'm touching on have been covered, but I think those are kind of the biggest places, at least that I've heard, especially from our teachers that I've heard, are the most important. And I would love to hear more. I think that's part of second session, is what questions we want answered. What else can we be doing, right? What else can we be advocating for on your behalf to make sure that you get what you need? to be successful, especially in our more rural areas, is where we know resources are limited. We know staffing is challenging. We know all of the things coming out of this pandemic, while still very much being in this pandemic. All that has made life incredibly challenging, more than anywhere, our schools. So we want to hear from you what else outside of funding and helping expand those opportunities in teaching centers, how we can be helpful.
Thank you so much. And Senator Akshar is not able to make it here today, but we are really blessed to have one of his staffers come and be making sure that they're able to take notes and relay what's going on to Senator Akshar. So we appreciate you being here, Robin. We're going to move on to Assemblymember Angelino, and welcome.
Well, thank you, Aaron. I appreciate being here. This is very interesting so far. I was listening to the people who went before me, and you would think I'd probably be repeating a lot of what I've heard, but I've been sitting here staring at your question, what can you do to help use organic processes to leverage the opportunities with local colleges? Well, first off, my district is very big. It's over 2,000 square miles. And I have a community college, and that's about it as far as my district goes. And that's Broome Community College, SUNY Broome. So the location is sometimes kind of tough to leverage, but that doesn't mean you can't travel. And in my past life, where I dealt with police officers that always needed training time and professional development, a lot of times you could see the burnout that was happening. And we had a system in place where peers, their brother and sister officers, would suggest it's time to send somebody to training, just to get them out of uniform and someplace where they can reinvigorate. Right now, I hear a lot from parents about mental health of the students, and I don't hear a lot about mental health of the teachers, and that has got to be enormous right now. So it wouldn't. Some of the professional development may be some time away, and send somebody to an outside source to reinvigorate them, and maybe help with their mental health. I heard Zach from Senator May's office mention the formula updates, and I thought dairy pricing was confusing until I got to the education aid and the formula that is behind that. I'm from an ag district, so I was trying to learn all I could about dairy pricing. And when I heard Zach mention changing the education aid formula, if there's something that is ripe for an update, it's how we send this money down. Now, these Catskill, the Catskill Regional Training Teacher Center, and all these teacher centers, I think there's over 100 of them, I only recently heard of them. It's something that I was not aware of existed. So it's something that you need to become more mainstream to get into the funding source. I think right now you're grant funded, under like One House Bills, they agreed to send money there, but you need to be in the educational process. And I think that would help a lot. Correct me if I'm wrong, Aaron, do you not receive it as I see you nodding. So it is sort of, you live by the grant, you die by the grant. And I think you need a steady source to keep these things vibrant. The peer suggestion of having teachers looking out for other teachers and recognizing those who do have a passion and having a conduit to the administration to suggest this person is going above and beyond, deserves a reward. And then again, those who might need some time away to sharpen their saw. The one thing that I did think of, and we did it at my small police department, was almost an exchange program where you could send a teacher to either a college campus and shadow one of their educators, or to a different school district. It's always interesting to go see how other people have done that and maybe have an aha moment, like, why didn't I think of that? I don't know if the timer ever got set for me, but it's said 3 minutes for a long time. But
And I do want to jump in and let you know that there are over 125 teacher centers around New York State. We all operate very differently. I am what's called a large consortium center. I serve 35 school districts, private schools as well. But there are also single district centers. And we also belong to a network of teacher centers to support each other. And so our network is the Southern Tier Teacher Center Network, of which we have the Broome County Teacher Center. And we have been working with Broome County, and they are looking to work more with their community college as well. And they are also looking at Broome Binghamton University to partner up with some programs similar to what we're doing here. So we're
after the redistricting next year, I'll have SUNY Morrisville and Colgate University in addition to SUNY Broome. And I'm looking forward to that.
Excellent.
Thank you very much, Aaron.
Thank you. Okay, and now patiently waiting has been Assemblymember Miller.
Yeah, I was all warmed up and ready to put my hand up to start. Thank you for having me here today. It's always a pleasure to be talking with educators and asking how we can help. But you know, one of the things teachers would tell you, there's never enough time. I think we need to take a close look at the mandates and the responsibilities that are being placed on teachers, both at the state and local district levels. They are being asked to do more than ever, and COVID has compounded this. Schools have become a center of the community in many ways. We see this with the social emotional learning that is imperative, and the teachers have been asked to take on more and more and more. Unfortunately, taking on all these aspects of raising children within the school day takes away from their main role of teaching and the desire to seek professional development on their own or further their skills. Sometimes professional development can be as simple as intervisitation in classrooms. So I think we also need to take a look at what we consider professional development and see if it is the best serving the needs of teachers based upon their input. We need to look at using community-based organizations and businesses also to help with expanded communities, like extending summer, after school, extended day or year programs to take the load off the teachers so that they can seek more professional development. You know, we spend a lot of time in the schools. My district goes from New Hartford all the way to Orange County. And we ask a lot of these questions. But I'd just like to ask everyone here a question that may help us. A good question for us is to think about is what can we do to incentivize teachers who work so hard? I'm asking help from everyone here. What can we do to help you incentivize the teachers here? So, we're here, we're out in the community. We spend a lot of time, asking questions, and we need, you guys are the professionals. We need your expertise to give us some of the solutions to bring back to Albany to be be an advocate for you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Miller. Teacher centers, one of the things we had done back in the day when we had some money is we did have classroom exchange programs where within our centers we would pay for substitutes, which of course now is a challenge anyway, but it would have allowed teachers from one district to shadow or observe a teacher from a different district. And now we are going to turn it over to Assemblyman, I believe Isaac Smith is here for Assemblymember Salka.
Thank you, Aaron. Again, my name is Isaac Smith. I'm Assemblyman Salka's Chief of Staff, and I'd like to thank everybody on the call today. Just to be clear, before I get to the question, if any attendee has any specific questions for Assemblyman Salka, my information's in the chat. Please feel free to reach out to me and we'll get those specific answers for you. But to the question, I think I think we have to look at professional development. And I'm speaking from experience, it tends to be very formulaic, and many teachers often roll their eyes. And I think we need to look at professional development and what constitutes professional development. As Assemblyman Miller said, it doesn't have to be something, very boring, and it doesn't have to be formulaic. It doesn't have to come to the teachers in the form of a PowerPoint. And I think we should encourage our teachers to think outside of the box when it comes to professional development. We have countless teachers. We're one of the most educated states in the union, and our teachers know how to increase passion and reinvigorate their colleagues. Furthermore, I think when we look at our colleges to partner with, many are often doing that, but I think we should also encourage teachers to go beyond their local school district and reach out to others, maybe in the North Country or down in the city. Together you can kind of pile on ideas and make something good. But I would like to reiterate something that I know is on the Assemblyman's mind, and that is finance, budgetary concerns, especially in not this fiscal year, but in the coming fiscal years. And local control. Local control is huge for Assemblyman Salka, and it's something that we scream to the rooftops. But again, if anybody has any other questions specifically for the Assemblyman, please reach out to me and we'll get those to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Isaac. In addition to the work that we're doing in Suniata, we work directly with some community organizations. When teacher centers are at their best, they are proactive, predictive, and innovative. At this time, I would like to introduce you to John Campbell, Director of the Franklin Railroad and Community Museum. John will be discussing the work that is getting underway related to America 250. Welcome, John. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Aaron. Good evening, everybody. It's truly a pleasure to be here with such a distinguished group of folks. As Aaron has indicated, he's asked me to speak on America 250. America 250 takes place July 4th, 2026. And you might ask yourself, why are we discussing this 4 years in advance? Well, there's several reasons. One being it's a big celebration and we want to be prepared. Educating school students and adults about the Revolutionary War period, being prepared for the celebrations and parades, and getting all the support we need to finance this program, people and others. On January 4th, 2022, and again on January 6th, 22, I met with Aaron Sorensen and the staff from the Catskill Regional Teachers Center to start the process of thinking about America's 250. As Aaron said, I'm John Campbell, President and Manager of the Franklin Railroad and Community Museum in Franklin, New York. I have developed a committee from the museum to start the process of setting up what we want to do in 2026 and preparing for that ceremony. The board has met with the school district superintendent and a couple of school representatives to brainstorm and come up with an action plan to get people from Delaware County involved and interested in the planning for the big county celebration. The important thing that we have tried to stress and keep in mind is that in meeting with these people, we want representatives from different groups to come forward, meet with us, and using an open mind, make recommendations and suggestions as to how can we best accomplish this ceremony. Our plan of action for the Franklin Railroad and Community Museum is as follows. One, we're creating a group of leaders that are willing to meet and brainstorm to create a schedule of events and support of our celebration, making people in Delaware County aware of America 250 and getting their involvement and support, preparing the next 3 years for our celebration, scheduling events, training, and for the leading up to July 4th. Our plan is to send a letter to each group that I'm going to identify to explain the initiative that the Catskill Regional Teacher Center has started and ask them to appoint a representative that is willing to come to the meeting to discuss and develop our plan of action. The groups that I am planning to contact and hopefully get involved are county school superintendents, county board of supervisors, village mayors, chamber of commerce, Daughter of American Revolution, historical societies, county and local groups, reenactment groups, media, sheriff and police departments, scouting groups, 4-H groups, legions, civic groups such as Rotary and Lions clubs, etc. In preparation, it must create an atmosphere of excitement and challenge to be able to get people's support. This support obviously is not only people's support, but financial support. Because to get it, we need to create things such as student and adult essay contest or developing parades or displays. And, you know, we all can learn about the Revolutionary period, which was before my time, and I'm sure anybody in this audience. So there's a lot of educating that's going to have to take place. We want to be able to do that in a manner that is exciting to people and will create an atmosphere of willingness. Thank you. Thanks, Aaron.
Thank you, John. So the question that we have for you, oh, let me advance my slides. I forgot to do that. Oh. So John is at the Franklin Railroad Museum, and we're talking about America 250. And the question that we were wanting you to respond to is, what are you doing to support America 250 in New York State? And without creating more mandates for teachers, how can we encourage teachers to support America 250? And if we could start again with Chancellor Young.
So thank you for the question. Quite frankly, I think we've touched on a lot of it through many of the responses. However, I would like to just outline some of the things that the State Education Department is doing currently through our New York State historian. This America 250 is actually a national initiative. And so through our historian, we are actually been in contact with neighboring states and other commissions nationally to determine what are they doing. That's number one. What is the real lay of the land? How are other states and locales handling this? Attempting to build our own information resource. The second item that I need to state is that the commission parameters were just finalized last week in New York State. And so you will be getting more information about how to be involved. I would say my understanding is that the commissioners will be comprised of the various agencies. In addition, I think the chairs are the Commissioner of Parks and Services and the Commissioner of Education. I also have been told that there are 12 external commissioners that will be identified through the New York State Legislature. So what that would suggest is it is my hope that the commissioners will also include one of our more important stakeholder groups, that is the teachers of New York State. So you can be assured that any initiative that the New York State Education is involved in relative to America 250 will involve teachers from across the state, because I think that is important. You know, how do we engage them in this? How do we build the kind of excitement, enthusiasm, and resulting incentive so that it realizes the vision of America 250, because I think it is the right one at the right moment. We have a lot to offer. We've accomplished a lot, and I think it's important that we have an organized vehicle for sharing it. And I go back to the Teacher Center is a perfect vehicle to help facilitate that.
Thank you so much, Chancellor Young. That's fantastic news. Regent Mittler?
Yes, thank you. I really think that part of what creates excitement is when the teachers and students take a look at the local cultural and historical sites. We're living in these districts where a lot happened during the Revolutionary War. So take, for example, the Sullivan Campaign, ordered by Washington, and the Continental Army joined with the nation of the Iroquois. So now you have an inclusion of the indigenous people and all the citizens who help create supplies and provide the trail. If teachers are familiar with their local area, then they can use the local cultural experiences to do trips to these sites or do virtual trips, depending, of course, on what season of the year we're doing this. But, you know, snowshoeing in the country can be fun, as much fun as hiking. I think part of it is bringing the joy into it. History is a story. Our children need to know about patriotism. They need to know about civics and responsibility and the rights that they have. We can start in kindergarten, having them understand what the Pledge of Allegiance is, why we have an American flag, helping teachers remember that through all this pandemic and even before and after, being a teacher is a privilege. It's an honor, and it's hard work, and we don't always have all the materials, but this is a celebration of living in a country that's providing us with freedom of speech and the right to vote. All these are critical aspects of democracy, and that's what we need to do. Instill our teachers with that joy of what they're doing, support them in their efforts, and provide them with access to documents, to examples, to museum sites. This could be a wonderful experience, and it doesn't have to be why are our kids failing social studies, but rather why are they going to be incredible citizens, because we're giving them the opportunity.
Thank you so much.
Aaron, may I just mention just one other item? And that is that the New York State historian, together with the New York State Museum and other historical societies, we will be putting together a website on America 250 that will have resources for teachers from across the state. I neglected to mention that.
Thank you so much. We've been compiling our own local resources, so that would be great to add to that. Senator Oberacker, would you like to weigh in?
Again, yes, thank you, and thank you, Chancellor Young, for bringing that up. You know, I think one of the vehicles, one of the capillaries that would come out to make this successful is, of course, information and how is it presented and how do we deliver that. You know, we did an Earth Day contest in 2021 where we put out a poster. You can see that. And we sent that out to the schools that are in the 51st Senate District. And we had, you know, the elementary children draw and have a contest and create this excitement, create this energy. And we were amazed as to the number of submittals that we got. for this. And it was great to go through them. And I can say something, we've got a lot of fledgling artists out there as well. But I really think that this is the, the way that we can help, that I can help move this forward, is to create that excitement, create this energy around it, and basically go from there in conjunction with all the other efforts. If we all tied together, we would be a focused laser beam force, to get the information out there to make this very successful. And just quickly, I'd like to thank John Campbell for doing what he's doing. Franklin is in part of my district, in the current 51st Senate District, and his museum there is worth seeing if you're ever down in this neck of the woods in the northern part of Delaware County. I didn't use my whole time, so I will concede back, Aaron, the rest of my, I'm supposed to say it that way, right? I'm conceding back my time. So thank you again for the opportunity.
Thank you so much. Senator May.
Yeah, again, I think the previous speakers really had a lot of great updates. It's really excited to hear about the website and the commissioners being appointed, as Chancellor Young said, and I think what Regent Mittler said about making it local is really great. We have in our district across the 3 counties some great historical associations, so we'll be sure to work with them locally and do what we can to get the word out, and work with you all, and again, however we can support you all, our office. Look forward to working with you all and providing teachers the resources they need, and getting teachers appointed, as Chancellor Young said, would be a really great way to get that buy-in. So we'll be happy to work with you all on that, and yeah, please reach out to our office with however we can be helpful with this effort. Thanks.
Thank you so much. We appreciate that. And we will probably reach out to you, because one of the programs that we run is a living history program that's fantastic, and we might need some funding to help get that off the ground. I believe Senator Hinchey had to leave, and so we will move down to Assemblymember Angelino.
And I am still here. I don't know if you saw my comment in the chat room. I brought the wrong cable. So if I go away, that's the reason. I ran out of battery. So the semi-quincentennial is coming up, and I've rehearsed since I don't know how long to say that word, but this is a great teaching opportunity, particularly in the region of upstate New York that I live in. There's homes and buildings here that are older than the Constitution, and particularly down Newburgh, West, Kingston Way along the Hudson River, that this has a great opportunity for teaching and also reflecting on what it's taken to get the country as far as we are right now. I've been to the Franklin Museum, and I want to thank those folks over there for the invitation. It's a wonderful place. Every small town has one of these museums in it, and every small town has this small town pride, but every small town has these interesting things. And I'm glad that they brought this up for this meeting tonight. We have a very robust museum in Albany, the New York State Museum and Archives up there. And right now, the planning stages, we're 4 years out. We should be probably having a state commission set up and fund it so that this can properly be recognized. And this needs to be a buy-in throughout. I know the US Congress has already set up funding for this, and New York State needs to be no different. Like I said, we were the epicenter, this whole Northeast region, New England, Boston, Vermont, and it shouldn't go unnoticed. The situation a few years ago was a travesty when the Half Moon ship came up the Hudson to recognize 200 years since Henry Hudson sailed up the river. And that was an awful thing that happened there that could have been really nice. This is something that has to be recognized and has to be budgeted for. And I'd like to see it in all the curriculum. And with that, I will yield my time to the next speaker.
Thank you so much. And I believe that would be Assemblymember Miller.
I'm sorry, Assemblyman Miller needed to depart in order to go to his son's senior night tonight. So talking about schooling and education. But I'll go ahead and fill in a couple of things that he had mentioned. First of all, here in the Mohawk Valley, we have obviously the Erie Canal. You have Herkimer, General Herkimer. So there's a lot of history that is right here in, in the valley and in the district. And they have wonderful programs that they do to help encourage the younger generation to learn more about the history of what happened right here. And I think because it's very, very local, it is a little bit easier to get people involved, and especially the younger generation involved, because it's someplace where they live. They could be living in a house that once was on the land of, where something significant had happened. So I think it's really important to go ahead and to do that. And I know that there was a bill that had gone through before, which the majority of the legislature had supported. And I think that something else that the Assemblyman wanted to mention was that we need addressing the second part of the question about without the mandates, how can they be encouraged to support America 250? And I think we have to, take a look at how we can kind of fit this into the curriculum that already exists by revising this curriculum and filling in the blanks where they need to be filled in. And this goes along well with the initiatives that are being looked at now, like the culturally responsive sustaining education, and taking a good look at what these children bring to the classrooms with them and how we can incorporate this into the ideas that America 250 has.
Thank you so much. It was wonderful to hear. Assemblymember Salka, of course, is not with us. Did you want to add anything in, Mr. Isaac?
Yeah, I'll briefly discuss nearly every municipality in the 121st that's located on the canal does have a museum dedicated to canal history. I mean, I'm sitting 10 minutes from the Garrett Smith Estate. And, we have the Cooperstown Baseball Hall of Fame, the Fenimore Art Museum, which exhibits many local artists from, the beginning of the nation's history all the way up till now. And we have the Farmers Museum. And I think we just need to support localities when addressing history, especially given that we need to look to the past to inform the future. So, the 121st is full of history, and we need to encourage students and teachers to get out there and learn it.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So when this forum was first conceived, it was an opportunity for teachers to share their professional and classroom experiences with our elected officials. Legislators really appreciated learning from the teachers. As our forum has grown, this roundtable discussion has been increasingly difficult to do. Many teachers believe interacting with elected officials is a political act, and as a political act, it must be confrontational and stressful. But one of the things I have learned from this forum is that you legislators really do want to hear from us teachers. So as a closing remark, please let us know what you would like to hear from our regional teachers. And we, of course, will have this recorded. And if the teachers that are on the call would like to add their answers into the chat, that's fantastic. If not, we will ask you to send information our way, and we'll make sure that it gets to you. So we'll start with Chancellor Young. Just a really quick, what would you like to hear from teachers?
Well, the big ticket item that we're asking various constituents all across the state is what should the New York State high school diploma signify, and what are the various components for earning that diploma? And so it'd be very helpful if we could hear from teachers very specifically on the high school diploma requirements and what are the various ways, various paths, I should say, for earning the high school diploma.
Thank you very much. Regent Mittler?
Yes, I think I'd like to ask teachers to tell me about what is working. I'm hearing a lot about what isn't working, but I'd like to support what is working and how we can support them in making sure that these students have equity and access to all these different specific learning standards.
That's a great way of looking at it. Senator Oberacker? Are you still with us, Senator Oberacker? Oh, he had to go. Okay. How about it? We'll have to go off the script here. How about Assemblyman Angelino?
If I were, I'd like teachers to actually tell me if they support the masks on these students in the school. That's all I hear about every day through email calls to my office. And do they think they work? And what I wish teachers knew about my job, first off, it's not glamorous at all. Oftentimes I'm the best dressed man at the steward shop in Albany, eating a slice of pizza from the twirly rack at 11 o'clock at night. And also, legislatures have no authority. We make laws and we can influence, but we actually have no authority. And people think because I'm elected and I represent 130,000 people, I can make things happen, and I really can't, but I can influence the people who do. And I guess that's what I'd like them to know about my job. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a very interesting perspective. Isaac?
Yeah, you know, speaking for Assemblyman Salka, our office would be extremely curious about the teachers' feelings on masks as well, along with other mandates, and just honesty in terms of administration, union leadership, all of it. You know, one thing to keep in mind is while approaching members may be a little scary, they're, at the end of the day, they're people just like you and I, and most are pretty open, and anything that you feel as though is concerning, you know, we would like you to be open and honest.
Thank you. And Assemblyman Brian Miller, Susan?
Yes, the Assemblyman mentioned having teachers speak candidly with him about, you know, what they see is working and what they see needs to be kind of revamped. I know there's a lot of reinventing the wheel as we go on through the educational process here. And unfortunately, it creates undue stress on the teachers, and that time could be better, you know, better spent doing other things that would really end up helping the children. So, you know, being able to talk candidly about what they feel. They're the ones that are in, you know, in the trenches every day with the students, and they don't just forget about the students when the school day comes to an end. The schools now have become such a center of the community that, you know, teachers worry about their students. They often call them their kids day and night. And I think that, you know, that's something that we kind of forget about, is they don't just walk away from their job when the school day is over. So I think something else that would be great to hear from them is possible solutions to some of the issues that they're having, and just, you know, having them kind of give some ideas about what they think would work, because they're the ones that are involved in it every day. And, you know, from a legislative perspective, we see things from a different point of view. But like Assemblyman Angelino said, you know, whatever legislation is brought to the table is what the assembly members look at. And the influential part is great, but there is no, you know, actually creating policy here on the legislative side. So having the actual teachers be able to give some input onto what they think possible solutions are to the problems that they see or they're facing. And also agreeing with Isaac from Assemblyman Salka's office, speaking candidly and truthfully about leadership, which I know sometimes is not easy, unfortunately, whether it's superintendent level, principal level, whatever, unions, things like that. The only way to really get to the bottom of this, or a solution to kind of help them out, is to really know what's going on and what we can, what we can support to try to fix it.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Great answer. Brian with Senator Hinchey's office. Oh, you might have had to go. How about Zach with Senator May's office?
So Regent Mittler earlier talked about housing and about childcare and about a lot of different ways that maybe teachers don't think about talking to their legislators. They think about maybe in classroom stuff or funding or training for schools, but just encouraging teachers to think holistically, about anything that's affecting their life that we could help with. If it's housing affordability and accessibility, if you can't find housing close to your school affordable and have to commute an hour each way each day, that cuts into your life, and that can leave you less time in your job and your personal life, increase your stress levels, anything like that we love hearing from folks about how we can support you, and to encourage folks to think holistically. Not just, of course, we want to hear also about everything in school and speak with candor and honesty, but to encourage folks to think holistically, however we can help, would be, something to just encourage folks to, in addition to the things that initially come to mind.
Thank you so much, and I believe that is everybody, and I appreciate everybody coming out. We appreciate all the support, and we look forward to seeing you next year at our forum. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.